important. I'm obsessed with how it sounds. So in a nutshell, we'll be talking about what exactly is content marketing. Has anybody heard that phrase before? So we'll actually break down what it is and then how you can get started. Like I said, it sounds intimidating, but it's really not. Okay, so you also have this worksheet if you have it. And as I'm going through, especially the first piece of what is content marketing, I want you to think about your definition of that. Because I want you to be able to take this and really look at it, focus on the content that you're trying to build, and make sure that whatever you write down here makes sense to you. So the way that I define content marketing might be different from the way Betty would define that. So keep that in mind as you're going through. But in a nutshell, content marketing is content that is produced by a business but does not directly promote the business. So if I was Scott's Lawn Care, it'd be wise for me to create blogs about how to do it-yourself landscaping, how to maintain your yard, things like that. They don't necessarily promote Scott's Lawn Care. However, it is showing that they are the experts in that industry, and it will set them apart. So what are if we just throw it out there, what are the businesses that you guys are working in, things that you have going on, or things that you want to work in? Just throw some out there. E-commerce, okay. Healthcare. Fashion design, okay. So you could write blogs or do different types of articles about, quick styling tips for a night out. E-commerce, I'm not very familiar with, so I can't give you any advice on that one. But healthcare, maybe it could be 5 steps to healthy eating, things like that. It may not directly promote your business, but it's showing that you understand the industry and you can provide insight into that. So content marketing is important because it does help you position yourself as the industry expert, as well as build credibility, and you'll just become a hub for news within said industry, as well as it just helps you build brand awareness. So if you're writing these awesome fashion tips, people may look to you like, oh yeah, I know. What's your name? Melissa. I know Melissa always writes about different styling tips. I have this event. Let me go check out her website and see if she's wrote anything about how to dress for a networking event. Things like that, and you'll become top of mind. Even with me, I kind of just fell into email marketing, but since it was something that I grew to love, people started to look to me like, hey, I know somebody that does email. Tonnisha does it because I did video blogs about it, I wrote blogs about it, I've talked about it. So people automatically look at me for the hub. I get random questions about email marketing all the time just from producing content and people understanding that I have an understanding of it. So to get started, think about first, what type of content will you produce? So let's just start thinking about that. We can throw things out there. Does anybody currently produce content? Yeah, I know you do. Want to talk about it?
Sure. I have a teaching, coaching blog that I write my thoughts, my articles. I connect with other links, other things that I find. And it's a way to, like you said, position yourself in the industry within the teaching and education section.
Yeah. Does anyone else currently produce any sort of content? So that's the first thing you want to think of. What type of content will you produce? So you could really do anything. Content is anything. This right now, me talking to you, it's being recorded. I could use this as a piece of content for something else down the line. So that could be blogs, video blogs, social media is considered content, webinars, training courses, things of that nature. Even this, I did this morning. This is a piece of content right here. So when you think about the what, you also want to think about the how. So just touching on some of these, even just looking at blogs, you may want to think about, okay, I want to write blogs, but how am I actually going to start putting those things out there? I've been using WordPress probably for 8 years or so. So that's comfortable for me, but some people are more comfortable with Blogger. That may be an option. If you're looking at creating blogs, which is essentially video blogs, you may want to use YouTube, obviously really popular. Has anybody started using Instagram TV yet? No? We'll talk about that. But you can use Instagram TV to do video blogs now. Facebook Live, you can do video blogs on. Even Twitter, I think they're like paired with Periscope now. You can do lives on Twitter as well. When we think about webinars, it sounds fancy, but the first webinars that I started doing was Facebook Lives in private groups. And that's a webinar right there. Now, if you have a admin console in Google, so I use Google to host my like tjecommunications.com email address. You can do Google Meetings, where you could create private meetings and have a conference call code, call in, and everything like that. And you can use that for webinars as well. And training courses. I mean, there's tons of platforms out there. And if you notice, some of them are repeated. Facebook you can use for blogs, video, for all of this. You could use Instagram for all of this, Twitter for all of this. I mean, and it's all free, which I love free.
What's Join Me?
Join.me is another type of meeting platform. I think it's free. Only if you're doing, I think there's like a cap on how many people you could have in the meeting, but it's free other than that. I think Zoom is the same as well, but after a while, you may have to pay for it. I don't really know. Facebook's free, so that's what I use. I'm liking Google Meetings so far. I think it actually used to be Google Hangout, but I tried to do Hangout one day, and it wouldn't let me do it from like my @gmail.com. And it said that I had to like have an admin console. So it lets me do it from that email address, but not from a regular gmail.com.
And you said you do email, you've done a lot of email. What platforms have you used for those?
I use MailChimp.
Okay.
It's free as long as you have under 2,000 subscribers. But then after that, so let's say you have 2,001 subscribers, I think you'll pay like $25 a month or something. Any other questions about this so far? Yeah.
So I am focusing pretty much most of my content on my Instagram account. So I'm just trying to, I know I need to blog more.
Yeah.
But so much of my time is the Instagram content. So do you have any suggestions on how to divvy up that time? Because I know that the blogging needs to happen more and get on my website, and that needs to be more of a priority.
Yeah.
What can you say to that?
Has anybody ever heard of Gary Vaynerchuk? I'm so obsessed with him. Like, I love him so much. But I literally listen to everything he says to do. I'm like, all right, Gary, I'm doing it. Like, what's up? Let's do it. So, what'd you say? Vaynerchuk. I think it's V. If you just look up Gary, VEE, you'll find him on everything. Yeah. I'm gonna try to spell Vaynerchuk. Yeah, no.
His first book.
Oh, yeah. I love him. So, he talks about, he always preaches work smarter, not harder. And if you listen to anything that he does, he says a lot. Like, if you read his book, I'm sure he has like 10,000 videos and posts that is like a summary of his book, but said differently. So with Instagram, let's say you're focusing on posting and doing videos. What I'm doing right now, you could take some time to, maybe as you're working, sit through and listen to your own videos and pull out things that stand out to you and write a blog from that video. So you don't have to like start from scratch every single time. Maybe something that you said a year ago resonates now but different, and you can write that and make it a blog post.
I just cut and paste my whole, some of the ones that I started.
Yeah. And even like when because I've been in my business now for 4 years. I started fresh out of college. So I went back and looked at blogs that I wrote that made sense. But I'm like, why? Now that I have more knowledge, I can take this blog and make it better. And I've done that before. I'll look at a blog that I wrote 5 years ago and go back and revamp it, maybe add some more relevant content based on the trends and things that are happening and push it out as something new. You can definitely do that.
And
Yeah.
then,
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
so you think that it's a wise investment of my time to put more blog posts?
Well, see, not every type. It depends. I don't think that you should just, like, today make a Twitter or Facebook, Instagram. Like, you have to figure out what works best for you, what works best for your audience, because depending on the age group, they may not want to read a blog. Maybe it's easier for them to digest it in a video or a quick blog post, things like that. I think you just really have to take a look at your analytics, and maybe on your website, you know, people are spending 2 minutes on your website, then it may be worth to write a blog because they're there, obviously already reading stuff. But if they're there, look at a couple pages, get their info, they're there for like maybe a minute, it may not be worth it. So it's just something to think about, just based on your audience.
Do you suggest,
No, you're fine.
having the, so what I've been seeing a lot of, and what's helped me when I'm looking at social media is the captions with the videos, because sometimes I'm not in a place where I can listen to it or don't have my headphones on. Is that?
I highly suggest that, but I'm just lazy and I haven't made the time to do that. But I personally, when I'm scrolling through Facebook, usually at work, sorry if people from work are watching this, but if I'm scrolling Facebook, I'm watching videos, but I don't have sound on. Usually I have my sound turned all the way down in case I accidentally click on a video and it starts playing out loud. So yeah, it is worth it for you to do that, because you will get more views on your videos, because most people honestly don't really listen to the sound, especially if they're at work and stuff like
And I
that.
was gonna say, that makes you, you know, seem like you're more inclusive for
Yeah.
those that can't.
Exactly,
hear
and that's
anyways.
right, exactly. Yeah, definitely a good point. And when you start the process, like when you click to add captions, they kind of already pull it for you a little bit. You just have to go through and like, maybe at certain points, like they thought you said content, but maybe you said conscious. So you may just have to listen and go in and make edits.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I just started this month doing Facebook Lives,
Mhm.
Go to Unity in the household, and I wanted to know if I'm getting like 500, 600 views already, and I wanted to know how can I pull, based on the email marketing, how can I pull some of the content and put it into like an email marketing MailChimp?
Mm-hmm.
What do you suggest?
So you could just do snippets of video. So maybe like you were talking about one thing and maybe this 1 2-minute part was like the best part. You could use that as a snippet.
So have
Or-
guest speakers come on.
You can have guest speakers, or you can listen through and just, for an email campaign, maybe you'll just want to say, here's a recap of my recent video, and just hit on the top 3 to 5 bullet points from what you've already talked about. So that way it's easily digestible.
Okay.
And then maybe from there, people are like, oh, this was great. They may want to actually go watch the full video
Okay.
somewhere else. Yeah.
How would you take that snippet, like how, from that Facebook Live video?
So you can, if you're on a desktop, you can download the video. Just same way if you would like save a picture on Facebook. It's like the video, I think it says options. If you click on that, you can download it. I have a Mac, so I have iMovie, but I don't know.
And then you can select from where to where you want the
Mhm.
video.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've never done that.
Yeah.
I think you can do that on your phone too, if you've got an iPhone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, you can get
iMovie.
iMovie on your phone, actually. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah. Or another thing you can do now, if you have an iPhone, you can do screen record. Have you ever done that before? Do you have an iPhone? You can do screen record where you can actually, like, you just gotta make sure no other notifications pop up while you're doing it. I usually put my phone on Do Not Disturb, and then I'll just screen record it and just, like, let it sit there and play, and then when it's done, it'll save to my photos. And you can clip it actually in your photos on your phone and save it and post it just as, like, a little clip.
Screen record.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, that's
See?
like.
That's why you here, girl. Any other questions about different types of content? All right. So now we know what type of content we're going to produce, right? We're all good there. Cool. So now we need to figure out how often we'll produce, which goes kind of into your question. So a few things you want to look at is your site analytics. So you want to look at, all right, I get X amount of traffic to my site. the most time spent on my site, maybe for like fashion, it could be 10, 30 minutes if people are looking through different things. Maybe for healthcare, it's just a quick 1 minute. I want to get on WebMD and know if I have cancer based on me having a headache and I'm nauseous, what's going on. So it's just like a quick, all right, I got my information, I'm out. So it just depends on your industry and what you have going on. So, yeah, no, you're fine. So you'll want to take a look at site analytics. You also want to take a look at social media insights as well. If you have Instagram, if you have a business page, you can actually go to your Instagram analytics, look at the audience portion, and it'll show you the time that the day and the time that most of your followers are on Instagram. So that will help you determine, all right, I know that most people are on at maybe for fashion, it's like right before they go out. Most people are on at 8, 9 o'clock on a Saturday night. That's when I need to post because people are scrolling through. I do that like even when I'm trying to figure out, okay, I need an outfit for this thing, but I don't want to go shopping. So I'm going to look up like something on Pinterest to see, oh yeah, I have something like that and something like this. I can put it together. Now I'm going out. So you want to look into that as well. For email marketing, you want to look at the peak open times for email. So I usually send my emails at 7 a.m. when I'm trying to test something and see if I send it at 7 a.m., then throughout that whole day, I can see maybe 2 people open it at 7, but 10 people open it at 11. So maybe next time I'll send at 10:45. Maybe I'll get more people. Maybe the people I sent it to earlier, now it's too buried in their email for them to find it, things like that. And that can also help you with A/B testing. Maybe you'll split the groups up, and maybe you will post on social media at 3 a.m. and 3 p.m. and see what happens. Depending on the day, if it's a Friday night, most people, when they get back from the bar, maybe they're up, scavenging through their DMs trying to see what the next move is. So maybe they're up. And you make a post and you might get people who actually respond to that, or maybe not. But that's just a good way for you to test it out.
What's A/B testing?
So basically, you have a whole group. Let's say all of you are my test group, and this is group A, and this is group B.
Okay.
So I may send group A an email at 7 a.m. and group B an email at 7 p.m. and try to see what works best. Or it may be the same email at the same time, but the subject line for group B is, hey girl, but over here it's, hello, how are you? Just to see what works better. And depending on the platform that you use, I know in MailChimp, if you want to do A/B testing, you can decide how long you want the test to run. So let's say it is a subject line test, and you want it to run for 3 hours. After those 3 hours, whichever group is winning, then it'll automatically revert to the winning group, and everybody else will get that subject line that was already winning. So, any questions about frequency? All right, so we got our content. We know how often we're gonna post.
I'm sorry, I have a
No, you're
question.
fine.
So I just started an Instagram, so I'm learning, and yes, you're crazy. But so I am doing right now. I'm a photographer, and I am because I'm starting. I want to do one photo every day to keep it active.
Yeah.
And it's always, I want to people to get excited to see what's coming next.
Yeah.
And I'm doing different things. So one time a day, I think it's okay. So
Yeah.
Obviously I'm gonna be testing, but
Yeah.
I don't know if because I haven't done any blogging yet, but I don't think I could do one photo and blogging every day. So
Yeah.
maybe 2-3 times a week.
Yeah. And I think
Probably might be a good frequency.
Yeah, I think that would go back to the analytics of your followers. So, talking about Gary Vee, because we both love him.
Yeah.
He posts like 4 or 5 times a day on Instagram because he has like millions of followers.
Well, yeah.
So, he wants to make sure he's hitting everybody all day long. But even for me, I need to get better at it. But I only do one blog a month, and it's always my tip of the month. So this month was about Instagram, and that was the blog, that was the email. But all my social posts and all of my Tonnisha's Tuesday tips on Facebook Live are about Instagram. But they're just like little snippets versus the blog was like one long, one thing about Instagram.
Okay.
So you can kind of think about maybe you are posting once a day, every day, but then maybe you do a blog once a week or twice a week.
Yes.
I think that may be okay.
Yeah.
But once you get to really look at your analytics and see, you know, a lot of your followers, maybe they aren't on Instagram Monday through Friday. Maybe they're on there Tuesdays and Thursdays. So it may not really be a point for you to post every day. Maybe you only need to post twice a week, but it has to be really, really great. And maybe you post twice a day, twice a week. Just depends. Lots of different variables, but it's based on, you know, what works for me may not work for you.
Sure,
I know me posting 4 times a day on Instagram, I think I maybe have like 400 followers. Like, people are going to unfollow me because that's annoying. Like, nobody wants to see my face 4 times a day. Well, maybe they might. Huh? They should. They might want to. Right.
How many selfies in one day?
Right.
Different angles.
Any other questions about frequency? But feel free to interrupt. This is like interactive, so as you can see, I'm chill, so interrupt. All right, so we know how often, so let's talk about the tools that we are going to use. So I would suggest different tools that you need would be a place to create the content. You would need a place to, if you do want to schedule it out, which I suggest, you may need a tool to schedule those things out. If you're creating videos, you need a tool to edit those videos in. Maybe you want to add your logo to it. Maybe you do want to add captions or graphics or animations or what have you. I think you also need a tool to design the content that you're producing, unless you have someone who may be doing it for you. Especially on Instagram, you want it to be aesthetically pleasing, because you want to make sure it looks good. You don't want your image to be super grainy or pixelated, things like that. So it doesn't have to be a super fancy, expensive tool. If you have a Facebook business page, there is a publishing tool already integrated in that page. Has anybody ever used it?
No, I didn't even know that.
Let me see.
In Facebook business page? Huh.
So this is your publishing tools right here. So this shows you all the posts that you have posted this week. You could go to create, and then you could write whatever you want to write, and you could schedule it. Maybe you want to start doing content for next year. You can go ahead and put it in there right now.
But that's on like a business page, not
Right.
your
Right.
regular profile.
Yes.
And that could be for any content or photo or video.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yep.
for anything, okay.
Yep. Yeah. So whoever said that, yeah. You can do it in groups too.
That's great.
Yeah. Another thing, so I use Buffer. I have the paid version since I have more than like the allocated free or whatever. But in here, so I've learned personally, like through my own testing, that when I post a Facebook post through Buffer, I don't get as much reach or engagement as when I publish in Facebook, which I know is intentional. It's smart on Mark's part. Good for him. I'm not going to hate on you. I'll just publish it in Facebook, no problem. I'm noticing it with Instagram too, because you know they own Instagram, but whatever. It is what it is. However, I like Buffer because it will actually tell me what times to post. So Buffer usually tells me to post 4 times a day. I usually only do 2, maybe 3 times. But based on my analytics, you know, it's best for me tomorrow to make a tweet at 8:13 a.m. because that's when most of my followers are going to be on and engaging with me on Twitter. Whereas with Instagram, I think it's not till like 10. Yeah, 10:28. So it just depends on, you know, your followers. And I've noticed over time, as I'm like working on stuff and scheduling, it changes. Like this, my first time used to be like 9:41, but for some reason now it's 10:28. So, and this is free. I can't remember though if they tell you the suggested times, but you can look at analytics and kind of determine that for yourself as well. But it doesn't have to be anything paid or fancy. Oh, and then even let's talk about graphic design since I'm already in Canva. But I use Canva, which is free. You can get a paid version. You can see this is where I created the little pamphlet that you have right now. You can come in here and you can create all different types of content. You can either create from a template where they'll show you like a design that's already made. You could just add, your spin on it, or you can create it from scratch. So if you go to Canva and you go to create a design, you'll be able to see, all right, what do I want to make? I want to make an Instagram post. Do I want to make a presentation? Am I writing an ebook, an infographic? And this is free. I have a client who has the paid version, but honestly, the only difference is that she gets access to more of like Canva's like what is it?
The templates?
Yeah, like different templates, and sometimes she'll get different types of the imagery. Like if I want to use like stock photos, she gets more access to those than me. But I like to use photo, like if I took a picture right now, this is something that I would use for, an Instagram post, or like pictures from events and stuff like that. But if you want to use like, stock images, you do have a little bit more access. But if you want to buy that image or that little icon, like the most, I think they're only like $1 anyway. So it's not really, to me, it's not really worth it, but depends on what you like. So that's Canva. Oh, and another thing. So when it comes to where you create the content at, so here's an example of like what my content calendars typically look like. So I created this like Excel doc with different types of like rules into it. So this is how I keep track of where things are going. So if I know that on Saturday, I need to post about Respect the Hustle, and I need to go to Facebook. When I look at that, I'll be able to know, like, okay, all the blue is Facebook.
Cool. Yeah. Girl, that is like hard.
That is awesome.
That's very cool.
If you want this, let me know.
Yes.
I can change the colors for you. I'm working on a way to make this a piece of content I can sell. I haven't figured it out yet. But for now, if you guys want it, definitely let me know. I can give it to you. So, depending on, yeah. Thank you. Yes, thank you. And it's literally just color-coded. Just like under the rules when you go to create like new formats or rules or whatever. I don't even remember. I never remember how I do it. I always have to play around.
Conditional format.
Yes, that's how you do it. So yeah, so you can make it, I'm not very great with Excel at all. And if I can figure this out, this is not hard. Now I can't get fancy. Now I can make it be, text contains Instagram. It's going to go one color or what have you. And that's just how I keep track so I can have an idea. And I typically will plan out the month like this. But I won't schedule until like that Sunday because things might change. Maybe, with the GDPR thing that was going on with privacy laws and email, that was something that kind of just came up that might throw off my whole posting strategy for the month. So I don't want to have things scheduled and I might forget that I scheduled something that's now irrelevant. But that's just me. If you have an industry that's pretty steady, I think it's okay for you to post, 2 weeks out, a month out, or what have you.
Are you doing that like once a month then? Just blocking out a chunk of time and.
Yeah, once a month. I'm just like, all right, I need to figure out what I'm posting, what's going on, what's happening. But usually, like Sunday is when I'm like, okay, I'm gonna schedule for the week.
And all your posts and content are kind of derivative of like a major blog that you put together.
Yeah.
So okay,
Yep.
cool.
I'll usually just like have a theme and I'll focus on that theme for the whole month. And not only does that just help, me just, have a clean feel to everything, but it also like helps you save time too. Because let's say, which happened this week, if you saw in Buffer, I had nothing scheduled. But let's say something happens over the weekend where like you don't have time to schedule all your posts. Oh, this is all week I've been up at like 11 o'clock, like, all right, I got to schedule for tomorrow. I don't like working like that, but that's where things happen this week. But at least I don't have to think, okay, what am I going to post? Like, I know that I'm posting something about Instagram. It's just a matter of creating it. And you can actually get the Canva app on your phone and iPad. So usually when I'm in bed at night, I'm just like creating, scheduling. I have Buffer on my phone and everything. Cool. Schedule it, keep it. Any questions? So tracking your time, this is really, really important. And again, you don't have to get fancy. You can use a stopwatch or whatever you want to use. Just doing this, though, helps you determine what's priority. So for me, I know that it takes me quite some time to actually break out the calendar and decide what's going on that month. It takes me less time, maybe, to do a Tonnisha's Tuesday tip video. So for me, planning that out is not really priority. It's more or less me understanding what the overall strategy is for the month. That's what's important to me. But I understand what takes the most time, so those are the things that get the most time. So it just helps you in the beginning, and maybe you only, track time for the first 3 months just to try to see, okay, what's taking my time? What do I need to really, really make sure I delegate time to focus on? It also helps you delegate. So if you do have someone helping you, right, then you'll know, all right, I need to make sure that I get these things done. These things don't really require too much of my attention, so I'm going to go ahead and pass that over to my daughter or my intern or whoever. And it also just allows for better planning. So again, I know that it's going to take me some time to create the strategy for that month. So I'm going to be able to plan better where I know I'm focusing on first the strategy, then the content. Graphics don't take me that long because I use Canva. I try to keep the same format. I just duplicate it, change the image, change the words, post it. So that's usually the last thing that happens. Which is why, even though I don't have things scheduled, I know what they are, and it takes me like not even 5 minutes sometimes to create the graphic just to schedule it out.
Could you just give an example, of like what your theme might be for the month?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know like you have perhaps have a different business model than some of us, but I'm just curious.
So this month I was talking about Instagram, mostly focusing on Instagram TV, which I know some of you say you haven't seen it yet. Basically, it's just long form video on Instagram. In my opinion, Facebook wants to be Google with the social aspect. So a lot of things that Google is doing, you may not notice it, but Facebook is doing. A lot of things Snapchat is doing because Snapchat refused to sell to Facebook. Facebook is doing. They want to be that hub, which is smart for them. They have tons of users or whatever. Right now, though, the cap on video posting, I think it's like 15 minutes, at least last time I checked. Could change in an hour. You never know. But, so my overall theme was Instagram. My tip of the month was about how to create your IGTV channel. And I literally went through and took screenshots of every single step, put it in the blog, put it in the email, wrote the steps. That's like the big tip of the month was that. But in my Tonnisha's Tuesday Tips, which I do a Facebook Live every morning at 8:30 as I'm driving to work. And I talked about Instagram etiquette. I talked about, if you've ever seen people's Instagram pages and now you can do like highlighted stories. I talked about, how you should have highlighted stories that just briefly touch on different things about your business, just mostly because it looks pretty, but it helps people be able to click through and know, all right, who is this person? So if you're basically putting your focus on Instagram, if you have those highlights, people don't even need to go to your website to know anything about what you're doing because they're already right there. They see it. That's all they need to know. Next Tuesday, I don't know what I'm gonna talk about. Because that's like the one thing that I can wake up in the morning and be like, oh, it's Tuesday? All right, I'm scrolling through Instagram. Oh, I hate when people do this thing. I'm going to talk about it when I'm driving to work.
Oh my God.
That's something that doesn't take me a long time to do versus making the blog, taking screenshots of all the steps. That takes time. So I don't know, tune in. We'll see. I don't know Tuesday. Yeah.
But it's still important, though, that I have
Yeah.
a website, right? Like,
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not saying don't have a website. I'm just saying that if you're not necessarily putting blogs on there, then that's okay.
Cool.
That's a SEO thing. I'm sure that's something else. I don't want to go there today. So different platforms you can use. Have you ever heard of Toggle? I haven't used it in a long time, but I did in the beginning just to figure out what's taking time. So you can create projects, or you can create clients as well, and it'll give you like a nice, very nice pie chart of you spend 8 hours a month on content planning, you spend 2 hours only on Tonnisha Tuesday tip videos a month. And it just lets you see what you spend time on so you can determine what's priority.
Is that free?
It is free.
Okay.
You can use like planning sheets. So maybe you literally just write out, these are all the things that I'm going to do today. And you just watch the time. I started at 8:03 a.m. I finished at 10:27 a.m. That's okay. You don't have to get super fancy with it, because once you understand you won't even need that anyway. Unless, you're doing it for like a business purpose, you might need to keep timesheets and things like that. But for me, just working solo, I don't need that, because I know I could give you a roundabout answer. But in the beginning, it would be good for you just to determine the priority. You can use a stopwatch, whatever. You don't have to get crazy. Toggle is cool, though. It will pull a report for you. It'll even pull a report for the different projects. So if you make blogging a project, and if you make scheduling social a project, it'll show you the different times for those projects also.
I have a question.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually have to do with time
Yeah.
specifically, but you just were talking about like how what you do is you have like your background basic, and then you type in whatever your blurb is for the day, and then you don't even have to think about that, so it takes you like a quick second.
Yeah.
And I happened to notice like recently the Beachbody Queens are all doing it right now. They all are using like their same.
They just went to a conference or something.
They're saying like.
They did.
Yeah, I'm friends with them. Sorry.
But what I've noticed is that they all. I'm not saying they're all using the exact same format, but I've noticed like person A, person B, person C, all the same format. And for me, like as soon as I see that format, my brain says it's probably the same fluff you said yesterday. Move it on.
Yeah.
So like I don't like stop. So I was just wondering like, I mean I can see how it's a time management piece, but it, like just as a consumer over here, just thinking about it, like that doesn't make me stop and read it at all. Like I literally just pass past it because I've seen that like format, that blurb. I'm sure it's something about success and be your best life. So I'm just like, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just saying, they just it kind of like because the format has become completely trite, and so just personally, some of the content to me becomes trite. So like I just go past it. So I'm just wondering, like, thinking about that, like. I can see how people could find you quickly because like, oh, she always does, Chevron or whatever. But at the same time, every time I see this like certain wave, I'm like, oh, I know who that is. Bye.
Yeah, no, that is a great point. And I think that goes into understanding your audience and making sure that you're creating quality, unique content to your business. So stuff like that obviously is resonating with someone out there. Right. And that's why they know that format is good for them to use. But somebody, going back to Gary, because I was listening to his podcast on our way here, he posts, like, let's say he, like, said something in a video. He might make a post that's a picture of him and a blurb from that video. Another post may be a video of him going on a rant, which I personally resonate more when I think he's Russian. right?
Mm-hmm.
I resonate more when he's going on a rant and he's like throwing F-bombs and swearing. Like, that's how I'm like, yes, Gary. Like, that resonates with me more than like a super sappy, like, you can do it post. When sometimes he does that, but it's very, very rare. But when he's going on the rant, that resonates with me.
Okay.
So you also have to think about, too, your audience, what will resonate with your audience, and how you can get that message across but still stand out from other people. So it may be the same strategy and the same foundation, but the execution is what makes your content unique from other people's.
I was gonna say for Instagram too, especially if you're like setting up your aesthetics. Like I made a background that's specifically for like quotes from other people or tips or whatever, and I'm trying to work on like setting up a pattern so like they happen every so often in Instagram. So that might be where having a specific format that you always use for a certain thing could come in handy because it keeps it consistent.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I think that's definitely true. And even someone like Gary, he says, like, who cares about the aesthetic, just post quality content. But, like, I kind of like the aesthetic. So if you look at, I love Kim K, and I actually just ordered a new Kimoji phone case, and it comes Friday, and I'm excited. But, like, if you look at her Instagram, it's aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah.
And she has millions of followers, lots of engagement. Gary's is not aesthetically pleasing when you're scrolling through, but he still gets quality engagement, quality feed, you know? So it just really depends on your audience and what resonates with them. But I kind of do the same thing. Like, my Tuesday tip, like, posts are always the same banner, different picture. I always make sure that I didn't use the same picture last Tuesday. I got to use something different, but it's the same thing versus, you know, a post doing a call out to, like, read the recent tip of the month or subscribe to the mailing list is the same format as it usually is, but it's different than the Tuesday tip. So
I was watching this, I follow a lot of people, but I follow this specific girl who she's big on like blocking time for content creation because obviously, like you said, like sometimes you don't have time.
Yeah.
And she's getting big into IGTV. And the only reason I'm mentioning this because to me she's like a hero. That she posted 2 weeks worth of content for her weekly videos on IGTV, and she literally changed for all of them.
Yeah.
Because she wants everything to look different.
Yeah.
And I mean everything she does, it's very intentional, and I mean from like the background to everything, and I just thought it was really, because I sat there feeling really lazy, like, man, I just I'm too
But then,
tired
like you
for
said,
that,
though,
but
like
yeah.
if you picked a Sunday afternoon where you had 3 outfits picked out, 3 backgrounds, and just changed clothes, like you could have 3 weeks worth. If you post a video every week, that's 3 weeks worth of content right there. And even with my IGTV that I started, none of the videos on there are videos that I did for that. I downloaded some tips, Tonnisha J tips, and I'm like, that was a good tip. And I downloaded it, and I uploaded it to IGTV just so I could have something there. And maybe eventually I'll do my Tuesday tips on IGTV. I don't know. But for now, you know, I took things that I already did and put it on a different platform. But by doing that, like I said, just pick a day, a month. You could just sit there. You can make like a 2-minute video, change clothes a few times, and that's like 3 weeks worth of content. And even then, if you're going through the video and, you know, you said like 2 sentences that were good, you could take those out, and those could be posts throughout the week. Hey, make sure you check out my IGTV. Did you watch my IGTV video? I talked about blah, 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 blah. And it's the same video. It's just different. That could be like 3 different posts out of one of those videos.
How long the videos? I mean, like, what is the standard?
I mean, my video, even with the tips, just because I know now you can like scroll through Facebook while you still have a live in the corner, but I personally, like, if your live is like more than like 5 minutes, like I don't want to stay on Facebook. I'm one of those people that check Facebook. All right, get off Instagram. All right, Twitter. So you know what I mean. It just depends. If you set a time, let's say, hey, I'm gonna do this live at 8 o'clock, and we're going to talk about this, this, and this, and people know they have that time set out. Maybe it's kind of like a webinar. They can plan to sit there for 30 minutes, but for my Tuesday tip, it's literally me driving to work in the morning, so I try to keep that no more than 5 minutes, where I'm just like, even then, sometimes when they're 5 minutes, I'm like, what was I even talking about? I try to, my goal is like 1 to 2 minutes, literally just one tip. Here's what it is. That's it. All right, have a good day.
You know what is interesting? I'm working on my first online course, and my editor told us, and this is for an online course, and we are recording a video, and she goes, 8 to 10 minutes max.
Yeah.
And that's for an online video.
Wow.
She goes, people's attention span is just not that long anymore.
Yeah.
And if you have to sit through something that is 10 or longer,
Yeah.
like you gotta schedule that. You know,
Yes.
like
Right.
you can't just be doing it. So
Yeah.
I was blown away, like 8 to 10 max.
Yeah, it has to
That's
be
crazy.
something that they
Yeah.
planned for.
Of course.
Like, I knew it was a webinar, so I'm banking it's probably going to be 30 to 45 minutes. But just me doing a Tuesday tip in the morning, like, I don't have 30 minutes at 8:30 a.m. to listen to you, girl, talk about nothing. It's 8:30 in the morning. So, like, I try to keep it, right. I try to keep it short and sweet. So, yeah, no, that makes complete sense. Mm-hmm.
Well, to follow up on that, I was just thinking what you just said. So I have a friend who, she does a lot of just Christian like ministry talking, and like I'll save all of her lives like until I just have time to listen to them. It's usually like when I'm getting ready in the morning or like whatever it is. But the problem though that I have is that like I want to say stuff to her, but now it's too late because she recorded it a week ago. Not that she doesn't respond to my comments.
Right.
But it's not that same engagement as it is if I'm like right there live with her.
Right.
But so I don't know like how that's actually beneficial for the people that are listening to most of that stuff later, which is often me. Or like I'll try to catch somebody live at 8 and then like my kids like, whatever.
Right.
I missed you.
Right.
The other night I would try to watch my friend. I was like, sorry.
You hold on for a minute.
Like,
You can't do that.
Right. Like, wait,
just like no milk. I'm watching this live.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying like I like the engagement sometimes, but at the same time I also like to be able to listen to it later, but then it takes away the element. So
yeah, definitely. It definitely takes away the element. And I think that for me too, doing the tips in the morning, like I'll see people comment, but it's kind of like can't really talk to you because I'm driving. I mean, if I see something quick, I can respond, but even with that, I can't. But if it's something planned out, like I've done, not this exact webinar, but kind of similar I've done. And I completely, hey y'all, sorry. Just I've done this kind of similar, but it was in like a private Facebook group where we had it planned out. Like I'm gonna start it at 9, kind of waited till like 9:05,
right.
And then we were able to go through it and people were able to engage. So usually if it's planned, you'll get more engagement, but sometimes it's hard to kind of get that piece. I think for me, just continuing the conversation about how, people don't really have time to like sit there and watch it live. That's why I started doing the podcast. Because I have my Tonnisha's Tuesday tip, but I only want to talk about it for 2 minutes, but I can really talk about it for 30, especially if I had somebody else to bring in the topic. So, I mean, so far I've produced, actually put out 2, and I think the last one was like 20 minutes, where I would never do a 20-minute live at 8:30 in the morning. But at least that gives somebody the opportunity, if they do want to learn more about whatever that topic I was talking about is, they could be at work, like I was listening to a podcast driving, I listened to it at night. I think that's like a big thing right now too, if you're just wanting to produce longer forms of content. That's a way to go, which is also free.
I was going to say, it's kind of following up on that, do you have like recommendations on like, let's say podcasts, like something like that? I know my husband, like he listens to podcasts all the time because he drives an hour to work back and forth. So he's always listening. And I mean, it seems like that's really growing in popular. I heard in Great Britain, like the people listening to podcasts have like tripled or something like that. Like that's the big thing right now.
Yeah.
So I could see that being, you know, if you're somewhere where you can't really watch something, but you still want to hear what they have to say and not be distracted by visuals, maybe you have a podcast that you can just hop on for 15 minutes or something.
Yeah, I think it just depends on the content. So, like, I feel like a business podcast, like about what I talk about, 30 minutes is probably the cap. It could get boring. I also, if you're, like, doing it by yourself, maybe only 10 minutes is the cap, unless you're, like, real animated and, like, people can stay engaged with you. But if you're kind of just talking, that could get dull as well. It just depends on the person, too. Like, I would listen to Gary Vee talk for 2 hours on a podcast because of who he is. But would I listen to, like, someone else who I may not know, okay, where's this going? Maybe not. So it really just depends. I listen to a lot of funny podcasts, too. Does anybody ever, you guys listen to The Breakfast Club in the morning? So I love, like, Charlamagne and all those people. I also love Andrew Schultz. He's a comedian. So him and Charlamagne have a podcast called Brilliant Idiots. And it's usually, like, roughly 2 hours. But I listen to that whole thing every single week. Another podcast I like called The Read. They're just, like, these two friends that are just funny. It's kind of but it's funny. But that's like sometimes 2.5 hours. I'll sit and listen to that whole thing straight. Listen to another podcast. It's politics called In the Thick, and it's coming from like a Latino perspective of politics, just because that's something that I don't understand. So I like to listen to that kind of stuff. And their podcast is only maybe 15-20 minutes, and I wish it was longer. But for them, that may work for them because it's going to keep people coming back because it's not like this super hour-long thing. So I would say I would look at, there's tons of people doing podcasts right now. I would look at your industry and see, okay, these are the top 5 podcasts in the fashion industry. And they're roughly 45 minutes, so aim for something along those lines.
Do you know of any like tools and stuff out there for that? Or?
To find the analytics?
Well,
or just
no,
to
just
produce
even
it?
Producing and
I
stuff like
use
that.
Anchor,
Okay.
which I found out through Gary, of course. It's called Anchor. It is free. And only thing I don't like is that you can't actually edit sound bites in the tool. So I have to, like, I'll record the sound bite on Anchor just so I have a place for it wherever I'm at. Either I'm on my phone or I have my computer or whatever. But I download it in iMovie to edit, like, my exact audio, and then I'll push it back to Anchor. But when you put it on Anchor, once you set everything up, it'll push out to all of the podcast streaming things possible that you want it to go to. I had some trouble with iTunes where I had to directly set it up in iTunes, but everything else, Spotify, Google Play, I uploaded it in Anchor and it pushed out to all of them.
So you produce it in Anchor, download and edit, and then just put it back in
Put it back in Anchor so I can just publish it once. So I don't have to log into all these different things. I publish it one time to Anchor, and they push it out to everybody. And it's free right now. So.
But with iMovie, you would have to like set it up completely. I'm sorry, iTunes.
In iTunes, I had to set up the initial one first because it was taking too long. I wanted to get the podcast out, and it takes time for them to like talk to each other and get it all connected because Anchor's still fairly new too. So I just went straight to iTunes and set it up, but now like I just push an Anchor and it does go to iTunes just fine.
You just do that on your phone.
You can do it on your phone or computer or whatever. Yeah. Another tip with Anchor is, luckily the girl who I did it with was nice, but we were recording, and every time you get into Anchor, I suggest like refreshing and making sure you're logged in because you get logged out after a certain amount of time. I didn't know that. You've recorded a whole 30-minute podcast, and when I went to save, it refreshed and it was gone. So we had to do it again. So if you do want to use Anchor, if you are using Anchor, just make sure that you like refresh every single time before you start recording. And when
refresh the browser?
Refresh the browser just to make sure you're logged in. And usually every time I refresh, I'm logged out. I guess maybe security purposes, they don't want you to be logged in for a certain amount of time. So you just got to make sure you do that. And I usually, it was that one time, but I usually record it in 2 places, in Anchor and then like some voice memo thing on my computer. The one time I did not do that, it didn't save. So yeah. Alright, so now we know the type of content, how often, tools, time, and this now goes into the calendar, which we kind of already touched on, but it's just a visual representation of all the planned content that you have. Maybe you'll look at that color-coded calendar and see you have lots of stuff going to Facebook, but not really enough going to Instagram. So then maybe you can delegate things in different places. It just also helps you with your overall strategy. So if you know what your plan is for that month, you can start thinking about other things you want to focus on. Maybe you want to do more videos. Like now that everything's scheduled and good, I can focus on, those other projects that I want to do, like blogging more, or doing videos, or a podcast. And for me now, doing the podcast, if I want to put that out bi-weekly, I have to make sure that all these other things are taken care of, or else I'm not going to have time to sit there and edit sound or whatever, audio for a podcast. So for me, it just helps me keep track of posts and everything like that. Then even with Facebook Publisher, not so much in Buffer, at least I haven't figured it out yet, but you can look at past posts and their reach and engagement and performance. And maybe, if you're planning for the month, right now, this weekend, I'll be looking at, all right, what are we doing in August? Because I'll be traveling a lot in August. So I really got to make sure I have everything together, because I don't have time to, maybe I might be on an airplane and I don't have service and I can't post something at a certain time. So you can look at, I know that last year in August, these are the things that I posted about. These 2 things did really, really well for some reason around this time. So let's bring those 2 things to this year, revamp it with things that are relevant, and push it out again. So when you're able to really schedule and do things the right way, you'll just be able to be more strategic. Where I want to get is on that calendar after the month has gone. I want to be able to go back and look at it and actually put the link to the actual post and the analytics right there in the calendar, so I don't have to go to all these different places. I'm not there yet, but that's something to think about too. Maybe you do like an audit at the end of the month. This post reached 500 people, got 50 likes or 50 comments, so you'll know that next year you don't have to go digging through. You already have everything in one place. And if you want to see the post, you can just click the link and not have to go digging for everything.
So when you say put it on your calendar, are you talking about what you put up for the Excel spreadsheet? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where I'm not there yet, but that's where I would like to get to be able to do that. So if you're starting off, maybe just getting into the habit of it now, so you don't have bad habits like me, where you're not keeping track of those things, so you have to think about it every single time. Whereas if you are planning more and a little better, it's just like a mindless thing. You don't have to do research and think about it too much. Any questions about the calendar? Well, I guess that's it. Any other questions, things that I didn't touch on? I know there was a question about content, like the time it usually takes for people to consume certain things. So that just, again, depends on your audience. So I know in email, statistically, people scroll an email for maybe 7 to 11 seconds is like the time that you have for people to read a whole email. On social, I would imagine it definitely has to be a smaller time frame than that, because there's so much content. So many people are sharing their thoughts and opinions and their businesses and their events. It's just a scroll until I see something that stands out to me. So something that you want to think about, again, like I have a friend who, she actually has a Facebook group for her business and people who support her. So she does post it on her personal page, but if you're looking for something from her, you know that more than likely it's in that group. And she has created that habit. She has created those supporters where they know if they want something from her, it's going to be in this group, and they know to go there and find it. So that is an option if you want to manage a group. But keep in mind, you don't want to start a group and leave it dormant. You got to make sure that you're consistent. I mean, she posts in there probably 5 times a day, every single day, even on the weekends. She's in there posting, responding to people, commenting. So if you're worried about people seeing your stuff, that's an option. Another thing to think about, just speaking to emails and blogs, to think of like bullet points and numbers. So even with this, even if you didn't actually listen to the whole presentation, if you took that packet, you could probably work through it because it's just, all right, step 1, what am I doing? That's all. I mean, the way that the world works now, it's just like, all right, tell me what I need to know because I don't have time to read this. I don't have time. So that's something to think about too when you're creating content. But, you know, depending on your relationship eventually with your readers, like I know that the 30% of my email list that actually opens every single email, most of the time they do actually read it because they'll respond and ask questions or they'll say something about it. But for the other 70%, that's okay. They're probably scrolling. I put the bullet points on how to make the IGTV. That's all they needed to know. They didn't need anything else, so that's perfectly fine. So I wouldn't get caught up in, you know, well, are people going to read it? Are people going to, the people that need to read it, that need to see it, will. So just worry about creating content that is unique to you, that's of quality, and everything else will be fine.
I got a question.
Yeah.
I have a business Facebook page and a website. So my website, part of my website is I read books. Some of the new books that are coming out, like the woman who was in Spokane, Washington, and she was white, and she was an NAACP president, and it blew up. So I read her book, and I reviewed her book on the website. So for the Facebook page, which is a lot more limited content, what is the strategy to use the Facebook business page as a teaser for the website? I mean, is there a specific way I can do that and make it so that the Facebook page feeds the website?
See, I would kind of think of that almost the opposite way nowadays. So, like, the website is good for SEO purposes. So if somebody's searching.
What's SEO?
So that's search engine optimization. So if you right now were looking for car insurance and you looked up car insurance Columbus, Ohio, all the stuff that you see on that first page is based on whoever built that website, all the things in the back end that make that show up on the first page. So if someone is looking for, you know, specific things, maybe some of the tags you would use, like on the back end of your website, would be book review, book club, book analysis. So if people are searching that kind of stuff, it'll come up. But even like that topic alone, especially with that specific person, that could easily be a podcast episode where it may be you and another person talking about it. If you create like a virtual book club, you could have a Facebook group of the virtual book club and maybe post different things that you've talked about within the book club on the Facebook page so that people may want to be like, well, what is that? I want to be a part of this group. I want to be a part of a group and things like that. I think that for something like that, I would think more of like a little bit more visuals and audio so that people can hear what exactly is going on and what you're talking about, which will kind of intrigue them to want to learn more about it. You can do meetups too, like free meetups to like discuss the book and talk about the different things. Maybe it's once a month, things like that.
That could be very interactive.
Yeah.
So people can, you know, give their opinion of what they thought about the book and their point of view.
So I think like reading a book typically is like a thing that you do by yourself, but bringing some sort of interactive piece into it would allow people to want to engage with each other and talk about it a little bit more. Yeah.
So you filled a room here. What do you think was the thing that you did that had the biggest response to get people here tonight?
I have no idea.
I do wine websites every month.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it's just a popular topic, but I did message the owners, and I'm like booking the other space because it has a TV as well. But it's people can walk around and
Yeah,
make a better
think
stuff.
content,
You're
like-
growing, so you need
Yeah.
a bigger room.
Right. I think content marketing too could be like a buzz
Oh,
phrase.
yeah.
Like, what is
Oh,
that?
yeah.
I need to make content.
And these
I
are
don't know
all
what to do.
great.
Um,
I'm
The
looking forward
description
to
was
it.
very, very detailed. I think that's why I attended,
Yeah.
compared to some of the other web stuff. Like,
Mhm.
I've attended a lot of tech meetups, and sometimes they're just very, like, surface, where you're like, what exactly are you what's the agenda?
Yeah.
I don't wanna waste my time if I have limited time.
right.
So whoever listed everything out, whoever, between the two of you.
And she sent me her description.
Oh,
and-
well, hey.
Very
But
good
then-
job. Thank you.
Could you give an
Thank you.
extra
Yes.
tip on how you create the visuals? Because I noticed the different slides, because that's my biggest thing as far as,
So-
I have the content, but how do I engage?
So yeah, so
the
I
audience
made
with the different-
I made this in Canva. So this is actually like the same template. If you've ever seen any of our webinars or any presentations, it's pretty much exactly the same. Mostly because changing all this at the bottom is annoying. So I just want to keep it the same. But for example, like let's say, like for these, I pretty much just like duplicated it. So if I clicked here, it would make a copy of it just like that. To change the font, it's all right here. All the different elements of everything. So if I wanted to add, an icon that was like an email or something.
PowerPoint.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah. If you don't
It's
have,
also
if you don't have
yeah.
a designer,
Yeah, if you don't have,
Great.
I am
Yeah.
horrible. Like I cannot use Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, nothing. I can't do it. Now, when it comes to like my logo, like the Respect the Hustle logo, I did not make this in Canva. I actually reached out to somebody, a friend of mine who knows how to do design, to design it for me. But if you're just doing, like a PowerPoint, a presentation and stuff like that, it's easy for me. So if I wanted to use like one of these email icons, you can just click on it, drag it, move it around.
It's like a fancy PowerPoint.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But as you can see, some of these things are paid. So like if I wanted to use this one, that's $1. And you can pay before you download it. You just pay for it. Costs you $1. I think these are the ones for like the pro thing, which I don't have, and I'm not gonna start my 30-day free trial because I don't want that. So yeah, and you can duplicate if you need to delete something. I mean, it's very, very simple to use. Or if you wanted to just completely start from a blank page, you can do that as well. So pretty much what I do, like to make something like this, like just this like transparent looking thing, I would just like go to shapes, and I try to keep the same like fonts throughout everything. And since I set up my Canva, they pretty much know like what my brand colors are. So they know typically like I'm not going to use any other colors but purple, black, and white. And then if I wanted to make that a little transparent, do something like that.
I gotta play with them.
Yeah, I mean, and if you want to put pictures in the background, things of that nature, change the background. I mean, you can do whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
I think you should have a workshop on this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. And then even with like design, so this is a post that I made today on Instagram. As you can see, it's a copy of something else that I already did. So I usually keep the same thing. Like I'll make a copy of this, but then, maybe I'll just change the picture or whatever. Maybe I'll just change the background image or something like that. I always try to keep the same thing. Or if you decide, nah, I don't like that, you can just replace it and start over and pick a different template and change out your colors and everything.